Our Lady of Fatima prophesied that the errors of Russia would spread. Are we witnessing the fulfillment of that prophecy? Well, that's a very good question because it puts the situation in the correct perspective. We have to, and anything that has to do with Russia, we have to analyze it from the point of view of Our Lady of Fatima's message. Russia is the only country that is mentioned twice in the message of Our Lady of Fatima. First, as a chastisement. Russia would spread its errors throughout the world, promoting wars and persecutions. The Holy Father will suffer, the good will be martyred, entire nations will be annihilated, etc., etc. At the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. The Pope will consecrate Russia to my Immaculate Heart, and she will convert, and peace will be given to the world. So you see, first of all, Russia is mentioned as a punishment. And Our Lady was very clear in saying the errors of Russia, whereby implicitly making a distinction between Russia as a people and the errors of Russia, which is obviously communism. When Our Lady said these words, 13th of July, 1917, there was no communism in Russia yet. There was the democratic, social democrat government of Alexander Feodorovich Kerensky. So it made no sense to speak of the errors of Russia when Our Lady said, but she's a prophet and she was speaking of years to come when some months later Lenin did the Bolshevik revolution. We all know the whole story. Now, a punishment, why? Because we're not converting. Our Lady said the First World War was already a punishment for the sins of the world. If I came here to call for conversion and to call for the consecration to my Immaculate Heart, if you convert, you will have peace. If you don't convert, there will be a second war, which will begin in the pontificate of Pius XI. And that's what was World War II. If you still don't convert, Russia would spread its errors throughout the world. So you see, it's a series of calls to conversion, a series of rejections of this call made by Our Lady, and therefore a series of punishments. Now, at the end, Our Lady said, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. The Pope will consecrate Russia to my Immaculate Heart, and Russia will convert. So you see, chronologically, she first mentions the triumph of the Immaculate Heart. She then mentions the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart, which hasn't been done in the terms Our Lady asked for. This is another problem that we can deal with some other time. But the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart was never done in the terms requested by Our Lady. So that doesn't happen. So, and the conversion will only come afterwards. So, triumph of the Immaculate Heart, the real consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart, then Russia will convert, and then Russia will, and then peace will be given to the world. So when we speak about Russia today, we have to ask ourselves, are we speaking about Russia punishment, or are we speaking about Russia conversion, or converted Russia? Now, what does conversion mean? Conversion literally means to go back. When you drive and you do a conversion, you go back. What does conversion mean in this case? It means two things. First of all, conversion to the only true faith, which is the Holy Roman Catholic Church. As long as Russia persists in its error, which is schismatic and heretic, that is the so-called Orthodox faith, it cannot be considered fully converted. You would say, well, but how can she convert now to the church totally taken by progressivism and modernism and all these things? I said, yes, but you see, progressivism is a cancer that is developing very quickly and very widespread in the church, but it's not the church. So in order to consider Russia really converted, she has to become Catholic. In the second place, it means to reject the errors of Russia. If Our Lady has denounced, has pointed her finger to the errors of Russia, there cannot be a conversion without the outspoken and overt rejection of these errors. Now, this hasn't happened yet. Indeed, Vladimir Putin says, and I have the quotes if you want, I'm fervently socialist. I'm fervently communist. I still conserve with great joy my card of the Communist Party. While many people have burned their Communist Party card, I still have mine. He calls the Soviet Union, the Soviet period, especially the Stalinist period, a golden age for Russia. He said that the downfall of the Soviet Union was one of the greatest catastrophes in Russian history. So how can we say that he is rejecting the errors of Russia when he's actually reproposing them in another way? Now, can we say that Russia is converted? And this is the next question. What was your experience in Russia? Did you find high moral standards? This gives me the opportunity to answer yet further the previous answer I was given. What's the moral situation in Russia? To begin with, as I said, Russia is the country with most abortions in the world. Then the moral ambience in Russia is not better than the moral ambience in the West. Perhaps it's a bit more hidden to public eye, but it's not better. For example, when we used to go to Moscow in the first years, 1990s, there was only one hotel in Moscow, the Rossiya Hotel just in front of the Kremlin, the only hotel. Well, as soon as you got into your room, your phone began to ring with a female voice offering her quotations services. And that was part of the deal with the hotel. This is the type, not so much so that we actually took the phone out of the hook and left it out of the hook in order to avoid this type of call that came in continuously. Today, if you walk on Nevsky Prospect is the Fifth Avenue, so to speak, of St. Petersburg. Every 10 feet, you find a girl who offers her services or gives you a visiting card inviting you to some nightclub or this sinful places of nightlife. Massage parlors. They're everywhere with huge signs showing what's going on inside. So don't tell me that there's a moralized ambience in Russia, because there is not. So then the Catholic faith in Russia. That's another fake news. And those who know Russia directly, as I do, know that it's a fake news. I once was in Russia during Easter, the Eastern Easter, which is 1 week after our Easter. Easter Sunday, I thought that the churches would be full. Churches were empty. Churches were empty. There's no more religious practice in Russia than there is in the West. Indeed, I read the numbers just a day ago, yesterday, about religious practice in Ukraine is much higher than religious practice in Russia. You can say, but there are huge religious ceremonies. I say, yes, but be careful. There are patriotic ceremonies. I was once present to the procession in honor of Saint Alexander Nevsky. Saint Alexander Nevsky was the person who founded modern Russia by beating the Teutonics. And he's venerated as a saint, not because of his private life, but because he defeated the Germans, and therefore he's a saint. It was a huge procession, huge. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people whom I didn't see in the churches. If you go to the Cathedral of St. Isaac, it's the official cathedral of the Russian authorities. You go to the Cathedral of Our Lady of Kazan, it's the cathedral in honor of Marshal Kutuzov, who defeated the French in 1812. If you go to the Basilica of the Spilled Blood, it's not our Lord's spilled blood, it's the assassination of Tsar Alexander II, etc., etc. Churches are patriotic places because, as I said, patriotism and faith go together. So there is no more religious practice in Russia than there is in other parts of the world. Indeed, there's 10 times more religious practice in Poland than in Russia, in Hungary than in Russia. So this is the type of moral ambience that we find.